These are the lecture notes for Chapter 1, Part A, and we are starting this recording with slide number 23, I think. So this is the second part of Chapter 1A. And we were talking about the functions that, the necessary life functions that humans have. On this page, it just talks about how humans are examples of organisms that are multicellular, meaning that we are composed of many, many trillions of cells. And that there are 11 organ systems in the human body that work together to maintain life. So this is an example of how the different body systems are interrelated. The respiratory system, which is our lungs, consists of our lungs, takes in oxygen. When we breathe in, when we inhale, our lungs are able to extract oxygen from the air, and that oxygen ends up basically being absorbed into our blood from our lungs. So it really diffuses across the lungs, the lining of our lungs, into our blood vessels. And then carbon dioxide does the same thing, except it leaves the blood and enters the lungs. The interrelationship between the cardiovascular system and the digestive is similar because when we consume food, when we ingest food, we end up digesting it, and then it is absorbed into our bloodstream as much smaller, simpler molecules. Those nutrients that are extracted from the food we eat are absorbed into our bloodstream. Now we're going to list the 11 organ systems. The integumentary system consists of the skin, hair, nails, and also some of our glands, like our sweat glands, our oil glands. The skeletal system includes our bones and our joints. The muscular system is referring to the skeletal muscles, and those help us to move and help us maintain posture, and also by moving we produce heat. Our nervous system consists of our brain, our spinal cord, and the nerves that are attached. The endocrine system is one that not everyone recognizes, but it is the system that produces hormones and sends those hormones through our bloodstream to different parts of the body. So we'll start with the glands that are found in the brain. The pineal gland produces a substance that some of you may have even taken or know someone that has taken this to help them sleep, melatonin. The pineal gland produces melatonin, which is a hormone. The pituitary gland produces many, many hormones that help regulate levels of other hormones in the endocrine system. The thyroid gland produces thyroid hormones, and it also the thyroid gland also contains, calcitonin, which helps regulate calcium levels in the blood. The thymus produces hormones related to growth. The adrenal gland sits on top of each kidney, and the adrenal glands produce adrenaline, or the medical name for adrenaline is epinephrine. You may have heard of EpiPens, but the adrenal glands also produce the stress hormone cortisol, as well as other hormones. The pancreas produces insulin and glucagon to help regulate blood glucose levels. The testes produce testosterone, the ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. So, and I'm oversimplifying this, but I just want you to have an overview, and the endocrine system is one that not everyone is as familiar with. Then we have the cardiovascular system, which is the heart and the blood vessels. The lymphatic system is tied in with the immune system. You may have been sick before and you had swelling and pain in your neck or even in your armpits, and sometimes in your groin area. That's where you have collections of lymph nodes that will swell when you have an infection. The lymphatic system consists of the red bone marrow, which is found in the spongy bone tissue at the ends of your bones. And that red bone marrow produces the T cells and B cells, which are part of our immune system. Then we have the thymus, which is where our T cells go to mature, and lymphatic vessels, and the spleen, the lymph nodes. We also have the respiratory system, which consists of the lungs, and then the respiratory tract, beginning with the nasal cavity, and then the pharynx, which is our throat. It's a common pathway for air and food. The larynx contains our voice box. The trachea is our windpipe. And then the bronchi, this is one bronchus, but the bronchi are called our airways, and those lead into the lungs. We have the digestive system, which begins with the mouth and the oral cavity. The food travels through the pharynx into the esophagus, which is kind of behind in the back of the trachea. And then that food travels to our stomach, our intestine, our small intestine, our large intestine, rectum, anus. And then in the digestive system, we have accessory organs that assist with digestion, and those would be the liver and the pancreas and the gallbladder. The urinary system is the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, the urinary bladder, and the urethra. The male reproductive system consists of the testes, the scrotum, which is the sac that holds the testes, the penis, the prostate gland, the vas deferens or ductus deferens, which is what gets tied off if a man has a vasectomy. The female reproductive system does include also the mammary glands in the breast, and the ovaries, the uterus, the fallopian tubes or uterine tubes, the vagina, cervix. Moving on, humans have survival needs. In other words, they need these things or in proper amounts to live, in order to live, to continue to live and breathe. We need nutrients. Different nutrients that we need consist of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and we also include minerals in with that. And vitamins, and oxygen, of course. We need oxygen to live. We need water to live. We need our body temperature to be regulated. We don't need it to be too hot. We don't need it to be too cold. We need appropriate atmospheric pressure. If the atmospheric pressure is too high, for example, if we go down to the bottom of the ocean where it's really, really deep in a submarine, if the pressure is not adjusted in the submarine for us, then the pressure of being that far under the water is going to kill us. It's just too much pressure. It's going to crush us, basically. But atmospheric pressure has to be regulated for us to live as well. Let's see. Let's look at nutrients real quick. I did say the nutrients that we need are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. We need oxygen. We can only survive a few minutes without enough oxygen. Oxygen combines with, most of the time it's carbohydrates, and most of the time it's actually a simple sugar called glucose. So in our cells, oxygen combines with glucose, and a structure in our cells called the mitochondria breaks down glucose in the presence of oxygen and produces energy in the form of ATP. So we need oxygen to help us break down glucose for energy. That process is called cellular respiration. We need water because our chemical reactions occur in water. All of the chemicals that are needed in our various chemical reactions, they must be dissolved in water in order for those chemical reactions to proceed. So It's also the fluid base for secretions and excretions. Normal body temperature needs to be around 37 degrees Celsius, which correlates to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Our chemical reactions in our body will not occur if the temperature is much different from that. And then the atmospheric pressure is needed for adequate breathing and gas exchange in the lungs. Then we have a section on homeostasis, which is the maintenance of relatively stable internal conditions despite changes in the environment. So homeostasis is maintained by all of our organ systems. They are designed to help maintain homeostasis. The nervous and endocrine systems play a major role in this. Variables are factors that can change. So for example, one variable that we look at is body temperature. Homeostasis would help maintain that body temperature at around 98.6 degrees Celsius. Another one is blood sugar or blood glucose levels. And of course, our pancreas produces the hormones insulin and glucagon to regulate those blood glucose levels. Anytime that we are maintaining a variable, anytime we are looking at the homeostatic control of a certain variable, there's three components involved, and that's going to be the receptor that detects the level of that variable, the control center, which determines if that level is too high or too low and what to do about it, and the effectors, which are going to carry out the change, that is needed to maintain homeostasis. So the receptor monitors the environment and responds to stimuli, which would be things that cause changes in these variables like temperature and glucose levels. The control center determines the set point for the variable. It receives input from the receptor and determines what the response is going to be. And the effector receives a command from the control center and provides the means to respond to that. So it deals with the response. And the response is either going to reduce the stimulus, that is called negative feedback, and most homeostatic controls are regulated by negative feedback mechanisms. But there are some that enhance the stimulus, and that would be a positive feedback mechanism. So let's talk about negative feedback because it is the most used feedback mechanism. Negative feedback is going to reduce or shut off the original stimulus. It's going to make it, in other words, make it go in the change in the opposite direction. Let's say your temperature is too high. Negative feedback is going to ensure that it lowers the temperature. If your blood sugar or blood glucose level is too high, negative feedback ensures that it's going to go down. Okay, so regulation of body temperature, which happens through the nervous system, and regulation of blood glucose occurs primarily by insulin, and that would be the endocrine system. So in the case of the variable of blood glucose, the receptor will sense the increased level of blood glucose. The control center in this case is not the brain, it is not the nervous system, it is the endocrine system, and specifically it is the pancreas. And the pancreas will secrete insulin into the blood. That is what it has determined, and the insulin is going to be the command, basically. Insulin is a chemical command. The insulin is going to travel to body cells, and these body cells are usually in our liver. They can also be the muscle cells, our skeletal muscle cells, particularly when we're exercising. You guys are going to find this out anyway, so this is a good time to tell you. My daughter is 19 now, and she's grown. She has a job. She has an apartment. I'm so proud of her. But she went into DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis, when she was 2 years old, and she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is juvenile diabetes. And it's the kind where they're insulin dependent. So she has had to take insulin ever since. But it was always explained to us that our skeletal muscles, and exercise work as like a backup generator for our pancreas when our pancreas isn't working very well. So that's the reason exercise is so important to all of us, but also to diabetics. But the insulin is the chemical command or message that travels to body cells such as liver cells. And these cells are the effectors, and they're going to absorb glucose from our blood, and that will lower our blood glucose levels. And we will, I'll show you. There is an animation. I don't stop to play the animations when I'm doing recordings, but I will tell you the slide number for this animation so that you can watch it. It is slide number 46. So what you would do is go to Moodle, go to slides, chapter 1, slides 1A, okay? And then in slide set 1A, you're going down to slide number 46, and you can watch this animation. I wouldn't spend so much time telling you about it if it wasn't good. This is a good animation to show you about negative feedback, to explain how negative feedback mechanisms work, and explain the receptor, the control center, and the effector a little bit better to you. So I'm going to stop here with this recording. We'll stop with slide 46, and the next recording will start with 47.